Star Citizen's Alpha 4.1 patch shipped with the Combat Gauntlet, a series of scenarios designed to test the mettle of would-be combat pilots with ramping difficulty for each mission. So, what better way to tackle the full gamut of the Gauntlet than to ship out a crewed Idris-class frigate, complete with fighter wing? I'm Forrester, and this gameplay video covers all 8 parts of the Combat Gauntlet using the Idris. To keep the overall length of the video down, some of the footage has been sped up, with those parts clearly marked as so, and for those interested in seeing a specific part of the Gauntlet, there are timestamps in the video description. And finally, this video is simply a gameplay video for your enjoyment and is not intended to be a detailed combat guide to either the Gauntlet or the Idris. So, all of that out of the way, let's get started. And starting in sequence, we'll start by taking the Idris out of the hangar and leaving to group up. Some of the crew have made it aboard at New Babbage, the rest of the crew will pick up en route. This is fairly common, I'd say, for Star Citizen experiences of grouping up, whereby trying to organise a group of players can take a little bit of time. So in this case, it's exiting the atmosphere of, I think it's New Babbage we're leaving on Microtech, and heading into space and bringing the rest of the ships aboard. It is possible to load up the hangar bay of the Idris with your own ships by using your personal hangar, but in this case, everybody is bringing their own choices, so it seems fitting to head somewhere into space to allow them to load up in peace. And the way that I've achieved that is by doing a short quantum hop, in this case to one of the Mike Lagrange points, and then just cancelling the quantum travel on the way. That puts me into a relatively sparsely travelled piece of space where most of the people going past are going to be in quantum travel, so the likelihood of encountering another player whilst we do these loading manoeuvres are small. And with that, opening the hangar bay, preparing to receive the fighter wing that is going to grace this Idris for the period of the Combat Gauntlet. This is the Idris P. It's actually an Idris P without any fancy weaponry, so it's as stock as they come, but the fighter wing will help to give a little bit of flexibility to the sorts of engagement that we can do. You can tell by the shadow that the first fighter is on the way aboard. And there it is, making its way into the hangar bay as I can see the second fighter on approach. And there's the second fighter making its way aboard. This is part and parcel of grouping up in Star Citizen, is just assembling the group does take a little bit of time, but I think anybody that enjoys group play knows that that 15, 20, 30 minutes at the start of the session is just one of those necessary things that you have to go through. In this case, speed up the footage slightly as our final ship is on approach. This is a Guardian that is unlikely to fit in the hangar, so instead, the pilot is going to hop out. But it might just go. No, he doesn't want to go. That's fine. The pilot's going to hop out and just make their way through EVA. Some ships are tighter fit than others. So at this point, the crew aboard are making their way to the various turrets. The Combat Gauntlet is split into various scenarios, and actually the first few scenarios are going to be so easy that it probably doesn't make sense to spend the time deploying the fighters and then recovering them. So instead, they're going to man the turrets for this first engagement and then man the fighters for subsequent. You can see here the first one is going to be just single targets before we move on to scenario 2. And then we make the quantum hop over to the asteroid mining base that is hosting Combat Gauntlet Scenario 1. Make sure we have power to all of the weapons for all of the turrets. You can see Bo at the front doing some test firing. And then make our way into the area of operations to start engaging targets.
Everyone know to start. Hostiles inbound. Light them up.
So, objective 1, 3 waves of hostile ships, and these are just going to be single ships. Really no match for this wonderful Idris. But, Combat Gauntlet, if we're doing every phase 1 to 8, we have to start small and work our way up. I'm trying to see what this is on the scanners. I think it might be a little cutter. Hard to tell from the picture. Whatever it is just behind this asteroid. So we'll manoeuvre around it and then the turrets will open fire.
Shields under fire.
Yeah, those turrets making short work of it. I think it is a little cutter. It's gone.
All targets neutralized. Catch your breath. The next one is on its way.
So now just a case of waiting for the next wave to make its way in. And there we have, this second one looks like a little Pisces for scenario 1. Again, really no match for this Idris. Interestingly, this Idris is not fully crewed, it's only partly crewed. There are still some turret spots open, but even with the turrets that we have filled, it is more than enough to deal with a Pisces on approach. And then wait for the third wave to come in. This is the view from the pilot's chair on the bridge of the Idris. So for this operation, I've been stuck in the pilot's chair, also managing a little bit of the power at the moment.
Shields under fire.
And there we have the final target. Trying to see what that is. Can't tell if it's another cutter. We're a little bit far away, so trying to get weapons on target is not the easiest, but I think throttling up seems to be the way to go. Kind of assumed that target would make its way to us, but never mind. So that's it. The first part of the Combat Gauntlet completed. Now it's on to Scenarios 2, which involves multiple targets on each wave.
Shields offline.
So you can see here the reward is the Mercenary Guild scripts. These scripts are the kind of reward for completing the Combat Gauntlet. It can be turned in during the current patch to Wicklow as favours. Whether or not that's still the case in future patches remains to be seen.
Auto-travel initiated. Auto-travel complete. Auto-travel initiated.
And here we have a short quantum hop to the next destination. As can sometimes happen, quantum drive is being slightly challenging,
Auto-travel initiated.
but managed to make the jump, and here we go.
Auto-travel complete. Shields online.
So this time, expecting some waves of smaller ships to approach. Scenario number 2. Still deciding just to keep everybody on the Idris for this. It doesn't make sense to deploy the fighters. Actually, the Idris turrets are going to make very short work of all of this, and spend more time deploying and recovering, I think, than dealing with the threats. So just waiting for these first targets to come at us. Just a single wave for this one of multiple hostiles. There we have a little Mustang. Trying to number these targets to make things a little bit easier. And then trying to keep the Idris so that the targets are above the ship. Particularly for this Idris, there is more firepower on the top than there is underneath. So trying to keep the targets up above where possible. And a nice little external view of those guns blazing away. It looks good.
Alright then, that wraps up this lesson. Fantastic work. Seems like you're developing a real aptitude for combat. Hopefully the next lesson will help you grow even more.
And that's it. Objective complete. That is a Combat Gauntlet Scenario 2 completed. So this one, it's called Target Priority. So ships of different classes to throw into the mix. So the idea is that you need to focus on which ship you need to deal with first and which one you can leave until later. Again, for the Idris in this scenario, still dealing with very small ships. It's not a particularly onerous consideration. And here we are, entering into the area of operations for the third combat scenario. Once again, got some more of these mercenary scripts as a reward for completing the gauntlet. And we'll fly in and deal with this scenario where we have to prioritize what to engage first.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to be doing that. I think we'll just go weapons free.
Got hostiles heading to your position. Prepare to engage.
So here we are. We should have our first hostile ships on the way in shortly. And there's the first. Looks like a Hornet of some description from the hologram.
Shields under fire.
And at 2 kilometer turrets are starting to engage, including the little point defense cannon turrets. Happy to attack that little Hornet.
All clear. Stand by for the next wave. It's gonna be even tougher.
And then wait for the second wave of ships to approach. This is very much overkill. Again, I think for most of these, even to the final mission, the Idris is the single biggest choice you might pick. So it is very much overkill. Got a prospector, cutter. Again, I'm not focusing too much on prioritizing the targets because none of them are a threat to this Idris. We need to kill them all So I think people are just destroying ships that they can easily bring the guns to bear on. And it looks pretty good from the pilot's seat. Seeing those red lasers fire. There they go. And there's the Hornet. That was probably the top priority, but never mind. That's scenario 3 completed. So next one is going to be scenario 4. Scenario 4 involving target stealth. So there's going to be some ships to find and locate for this scenario, so a little bit different. Enjoy a nice little external view there of the Idris. And we're bringing another person on board, so we'll stop and let them on. And they'll come through the old-fashioned way of EVAing onto that rear ramp. Good thing about the Idris is it's fairly easy to bring more people on if you're doing something like this and then somebody else drops online. It's not too onerous to be able to say, yeah, just fly to us, hop aboard. If your ship fits in the hangar, hop in there. And we'll make our way to the next scenario. So this is scenario 4. There are some stealthier targets. So, to support with that, I've decided that for this scenario, we are going to deploy the fighters. We have our front top turret gunner is going to head down and open the doors for us so that we can deploy these fighters, which will just assist us in actually being able to locate the targets, which can be a bit of a challenge sometimes. So by using the fighters to fly around, they'll much more easily be able to find some of those stealth targets and deal with those than the turret gunners on the Idris. So there they go, 2 fighters deployed. Idris can deploy, closing the doors, and Boa is going to head from the hangar controls all the way back up to that top turret.
Stand by. Looks like you got inbound. Weapons
So because those fighters have flown in, they've triggered the event to start as well, so they can be starting to make their search for these hostiles while the Idris flies in, ready to provide fire support if needed. And that first target doesn't look stealthy at all. Looks like it's some sort of an Argo ship, maybe a raft or an SRV or a mole. Hard to tell from the hologram. But the Idris P is not scared to engage it. So we're slightly down on turret firepower, but we still have a lot of the turrets manned. And we also have the firepower multiplier, having those 2 fighters in space to support as well. And here, it does look like a mole. That mole just getting beneath the Idris into the blind spot of those top turrets. So as a pilot, just focusing on trying to keep it above the ship where possible. In case it's not obvious, the Idris is a capital ship, a frigate, and it is very slow to maneuver and turn. So actually just trying to keep a target above the ship is fairly hard work, but we'll try our best. Try our best.
Shields under fire.
It's good when they arrive in front of the bridge and you can see all that firepower going at them, and now from the fighters as well. Fantastic. So I'm trying to find a balance between giving a little bit of commentary about what's going on, but also shutting up a little bit and letting you all enjoy what you're seeing unencumbered by my voiceover. Trying to find that balance. You can let me know in the comments if I'm finding it right or not.
Nicely done, rookie. I wish more of my students flew like that. Take a well-deserved rest and let me know when you're ready for the next lesson.
So there we are. That's Combat Gauntlet mission number 4 completed. So before we go off to do mission number 5, we're going to recover the fighters back aboard the Idris. Realistically, for a scenario like this, where we're not going far, it would be just as easy to just all quantum together rather than recover and deploy. But where's the fun in that? It's a nice big hangar deck. Why not practice a little bit of fighter recovery and deployment? Scenario number 5 is going to be all about missiles and countermeasures. So a good opportunity to practice a little bit of missile gameplay. Here we are, we see those fighters recovering one by one. The flow for the Idris seems to be expecting fighters to depart from the front and recover from the rear. Certainly when you look inside the Idris, there's a sign that says basically don't go this way when you're trying to leave through the rear, although it is possible. For a scenario like this where we've got multiple ships, keeping the same direction just helps avoid conflicts and keeps everybody on the same page. So depart in the front, recover in the rear. So preparing to make the quantum hop to the 5th scenario, all about those missiles and countermeasures, just letting the crew get themselves all sorted out and into their respective positions. For this one, doesn't really make a lot of sense to deploy the fighters. Don't think they're going to be needed, so we're getting our fighter pilots manning some more turrets, ready to put some turret firepower down, as some of the PDCs, the point defense cannons, are going to be focused on dealing with incoming munitions rather than some of the smaller ships.
Quantum traffic. Shields online.
So here we are, arrived for scenario 5. Missiles and countermeasures. Probably should throw point defense cannons into the mix for that, given it's the Idris. So we'll make our approach to the asteroid mining base and wait for the hostiles to spawn.
Welcome, Rook. We'll get started in a moment. Contact. Radio.
So there we can see the first ship has spawned. It looks like a Freelancer. I assume perhaps a Freelancer MIS, given that it's all about missiles and countermeasures. And there we have incoming. And the point defense cannons are more than happy to do something with that. Nice external view there of seeing all of that firepower going in the Freelancer. Brutal. That was the first wave, that was it. So we'll wait for the second wave and we'll deal with that accordingly. I should point out once again, the Idris is hugely overpowered for these lower order missions in the Combat Gauntlet. It is very much a bigger ship than is needed to deal with it. So this time looks like we got an Eclipse, some sort of a Vanguard, and another Freelancer. Is it Eclipse? No, it's not an Eclipse. It looks like a Saber. Thought it was an Eclipse from that profile in the hologram, but as soon as you see the wider view, it looks more like a Saber.
Shields under fire.
So in this case, turrets have plenty to deal with. Lots of targets to be firing on.
Congrats on completing another part of your course.
And that's it.
You impressed the other pilots out there today. I'll see you when you're ready to continue your training.
Scenario 5 completed. So on to scenario 6. So number 6 out of 8.
Weapon systems.
Which is going to be about multi-crew targets. I actually can't see it on the list. There aren't any options to complete scenario 6. So, the Star Citizen way of trying to deal with this is to try jumping somewhere else and see if that refreshes the list. So I think to try and resolve the situation, we'll do a short hop somewhere and then check the list once again and see if that helps to breathe some life into it.
Quantum travel initiated.
And as if by magic, it has. So we now have scenario 6, which is a multi-crew target scenario. Again, the Idris is not really going to struggle with this scenario. These ships really don't pose much of a threat, albeit some of the multi-crew ships potentially could. Thinking here about maybe like a Retaliator or something like that could be a danger to the Idris if left unchecked. But for a scenario like this against the AI targets where we're flying in, knowing that we're going up against things, I think we should be fine. So we'll make our way to the next quantum beacon for scenario number 6 of the Combat Gauntlet.
Quantum travel. Shields online.
So scenario number 6, small multi-crew ships. This is an excellent opportunity to deploy our fighters. So those front doors open, first fighter deploying and departing, and then watch as the second fighter follows it out. And the doors can close, the Idris can follow on. So our combat pilots are both from my organisation, the United Space Confederation. We also have Lord Boa, who is swapping between manning the front turret and then heading down to the hangar bay to open and close the doors, which is a very helpful job to have in the Idris. Having somebody there full time, just opening and closing doors would be rough, but swapping between that big front turret and then heading back to open and close the hangar bay doors as and when we need to launch and recover is very much appreciated. So here we have just a single wave, which between our F8s and the Idris shouldn't be too much of a problem. But we've got their Constellation and a Gladius. So the priority that we're planning is that the fighters will engage the smaller ships, the fighters, and then the Idris will focus on the larger ships. In this case, that's the Constellation. Again, all of the ships are going to make short work of it, but it's good to have a system, I think, a plan. It's good to have a plan.
Shields under fire. Kill.
There we go. Another lesson in the books. Hopefully,
And that's it.
you feel yourself
As simple and straightforward as that.
seeing it on my side.
Very well
Alright,
executed
then,
plan, I would
downtime,
say.
Then we can get back at it. Rest up and I'll see you soon.
So, on that note, time to recover the fighters. We'll bring them back aboard, and then we'll have a look at exploring Scenario 7. So you can see the fighters there ready for recovery, just waiting for that rear door to open. There it goes, right on time. Fighters slinking their way aboard. And there we have it, recovery. So at this point we'll have a look for Combat Gauntlet Scenario 7. So this is where some of the targets are starting to get bigger. Still probably not going to break much of a sweat with the Idris, but those fighters that we deploy and recover are going to have to work a little bit harder, be a little bit more careful.
Quantum travel initiated. Quantum travel shields online.
So here we are for Scenario 7. Once again, opening those front doors. We'll deploy the fighters to support before we all move in together. I tell you what, there's something awesome about seeing those fighters deploying from the front of the Idris. I think sometimes it feels almost like you're watching a cinematic, or I don't know, like a strategy game or something like that, and then you realise those are real people, real pilots, like flying out of the hangar. That's pretty cool. That for me is what excites me about Star Citizen, is the fact that you've got everything built up from that first person experience, and you can do some of those cool things you see in the films, like departing from a hangar bay. Very cool. So we have our targets here. The largest target is a hammerhead, which is a pretty chunky target and a real threat to those fighters that we have flying with us. So for this part of the combat gauntlet, we're really focusing the Idris on focusing down that hammerhead, which is such a threat to our smaller ships, and then our fighters will deal with the enemy fighters. And as you can see, that hammerhead really couldn't stand up to the firepower of this Idris, knocking down the shields quickly and really getting a lot of damage on the hull. The hammerhead I really like as a ship, but it's supposed to be an anti-fighter platform, a screening ship, rather than something that is getting into angles with an Idris, so it does make sense, I think, that the Idris does overmatch it somewhat in an engagement like this. And there goes the hammerhead. And just look around to see if there's anything else left. We just have our friendly fighters. Looking up, they do seem to be engaged with something, so we'll head over there, try and help out. And actually they seem to be all done there now. So while the gunners knock out some of the husks that have been left over, we'll focus on recovering these fighters before heading out for the final part of the Gauntlet, the toughest part. There, that rear ramp of the hangar opening. And seeing some slightly damaged fighters recovering aboard. And to be fair, that only feels right. The hammerhead is supposed to be an anti-fighter platform. It's supposed to be a scary threat for these things. So the fact that they've taken a little bit of damage from it, I think is okay. I'm very excited for the time when we'll be able to fix up a lot of that damage from potentially the hangar deck of an Idris or a dedicated repair ship. That will excite me. However, in the interim, we're on to Scenario 8. This is going to be the toughest scenario for this Idris in particular. And the reason that I say that is this Idris isn't equipped with any fancy weaponry on the nose. So between the Idris M and the Idris P, they have some options to equip some weapons on the front of the ship. There's a very heavy nose mount which can be equipped with a railgun that ships with the Idris M, or a laser beam, or a torpedo launcher. This Idris P, this little loner Idris P, doesn't have any of those. So the only firepower we have is provided by the fighter wing that we're carrying and also the main turrets. So it is going to be a suboptimal engagement for this. Ideally, you would have some of that heavier armament to deal with the Polaris threat that we're about to deal with, but we don't have that. And I think the Idris is going to be fine, albeit it might just take a little bit of time. So here we have Scenario 8. Once again, deploy the fighters ready to support. First one away, second one away. And so we'll start moving and get those doors shut and go and engage this Polaris. So this time we're keeping the fighters slightly closer to the Idris just because of the threat posed by that Polaris and some of the slight damage that we took from the last engagement. So they're really operating as more of a fighter escort than their own thing for now, until we can see exactly what it is we're dealing with and dish out some taskings.
Contact.
So we have a Corsair, a Gladius or two, but a few different targets here. So we're going to focus the Idris on some of those multi-crew ships to begin with. So the main priority target for the Idris is going to be dealing with that Corsair. And the fighters will deal with the enemy fighters, as you can start to see some of those heavier rounds coming in from the Polaris. Tell you what, it looks good. These capital ship fights do look good. Whether or not you want to call a Polaris a capital ship, it is certainly up there as one of the bigger threats that we can face. Thankfully, the heaviest weapon on the Polaris, those torpedoes, are currently, as of patch 4.1, not too much of a threat to this Idris, because they will shoot at range and the PDCs would shoot them down before they got to the ship. Obviously, players are a little bit more creative with how they deploy torpedoes, and there's some whisperings that as of patch 4.2, torpedoes might be a little bit more dangerous, but currently, in fact, patch 4.1, not too worried about incoming torpedoes from that Polaris. So really trying to focus the Idris firepower on dealing with that Corsair, reducing the number of threats that we have to take on before switching to the Polaris. And on that note, trying to deal with the Corsair if we can. Trying to just keep it above the ship. Once again, that's where most of the firepower of this Idris is focused, is above the ship. So just do my best as the pilot to keep an eye on where that target marker is pointed and trying to keep the ship beneath that so that the gunners in the turrets have optimal sight lines, fire lines on that priority target. Do my best to try and maintain a situational awareness of what is going on. And that explosion looked like that was the Corsair. And so now it's a case of dealing with this Polaris. This is going to be a fight involving lots of gunfire from both ships. This is the final threat for us. So I'm actually gonna shut up a little bit and let you just enjoy the Polaris versus the Idris.
Docking request initiated. Shields under fire. Landing gear deployed. Docking request initiated. Docking request denied. Landing gear retracted.
So as that weight of firepower lands on the hostile Polaris, it's becoming quite obvious how that weight of firepower isn't actually that weighty. Really, this would be a great opportunity to have some sort of nose weapon on the Idris just to speed things up a little bit, as the pilot's doing level best to keep behind the Polaris, so staying focused on a single shield face and focused on damaging the same area of the ship as much as possible, at least getting in a good position for the gunners to be able to do that, and trying to do as much as I can as a pilot to let that happen. But it's going to be a battle of attrition, this one, with just the smaller turrets engaging rather than any large armament.
Shields under fire.
I did say this was going to be a war of attrition, and that does seem to be how things are playing out. That rear shield of the Polaris is down, and the turrets are doing a bit of damage to the ship, but it's a bit of damage rather than a lot at this point. Doing what we can anyway. The shields of the Idris not even close to dropping. This ship is absolutely fine with the firepower that the Polaris is throwing at it, just doesn't quite have enough to return the favour. Poor Polaris, looks like it got a little bit stuck on that asteroid. So be careful. Will damage a ship. I love seeing gunfire coming in from the fighters as well. Poor fighters that have been very careful not to attract too much fire from that Polaris, but still dishing out the damage. Seeing that open hangar bay door on the Polaris as well tells me it's taken a fair amount of damage. It shouldn't be too long until it's destroyed.
Shields under fire. Systems offline. Weapon systems online.
And there we have it. After what seemed like a very long fight, the Polaris is finally destroyed. If you enjoyed this video, you might press the like button to let me know I should make more similar videos, and if you're not yet subscribed, given that you got this far, that's something you might also consider so that YouTube will know to show you more videos like this in future. But otherwise, and as always, thank you for watching.